to see a lot of familiar faces here. Thank you for coming. I want to get a little bit of the lay of the land here. Who either owns rental properties or works with investors? Okay. Now I thought a little bit of mixed crowd here, which is great. So I want to hear from you. I don't want to sit here preaching at you for 3 hours. I want to learn from you and your experience as well. I want to learn and grow this class and learn from you and learn from my experience and keep growing this class and make it as beneficial as possible. So first, a little bit about my background is, as Lacey said, I'm from Edina, grew up in Edina, went to Breck High School, graduated from the University of Pennsylvania with a degree in economics. So when I graduated from Penn, I really had no idea what I wanted to do. So a lot of my friends went on and did the Wall Street deal. It wasn't for me. I knew I liked finance and I liked real estate. So I got back to Minneapolis and I spoke with a good family friend of mine. I'm sure everybody knows Ralph Burnett. So I spoke with Ralph and I kind of picked his brain. What should I do? What should I get into? And then he suggested I contact the president of the affiliated mortgage company. And so I met with her, kind of spoke with her about what mortgage banking entailed. And she's like, well, do you want to give it a shot? I said, what the hell? That was 16 years ago. So I've been doing mortgage banking for over 16 years, so I've seen a lot of ups and downs, a lot of changes. It's been quite interesting. So my real passion has always been investing in real estate. So my dad got me a book when I graduated from college. Who here has read Rich Dad Poor Dad? But actually, I have the book here, and I have a couple books that I would suggest reading as well if you're so interested. So this was probably the best book I've ever read. And the premise of the book is to buy assets that produce income that pay for liabilities. So over time, you accumulate assets that pay for your liabilities, your car payments, your housing payments, whatever it is. And when you get to the point in your life, we have enough income produced from your assets to pay your liabilities in perpetuity, you're in essence financially free. And so that's always stuck with me, to be able to have that foundation in my life, to be able to do the things that I want to do. And so I figured, what's the best vehicle for me to be financially free? And naturally, real estate came to mind, and we'll go over why in a little bit. So I bought my first rental property in 2004. It was a duplex in northeast Minneapolis, 3-bed, 1-bath, 2 units. I think I paid $295 for it with $5,000 paid closing costs. It was by no stretch of the imagination a home run, but it got me started. And so over the next couple of years, as we all know, the real estate market was irrational. Prices just kept going up. So I kind of sat in the sidelines for a few years. Then what everybody knows what happened in 2008, the market just crashed. And so now I'm sitting there with an investment that's underwater. But I didn't care. It didn't matter to me. I'm buying for the long term. So as long as it cash flowed, I didn't care on paper what the value of the property was worth. And so I figured that was going to be a great opportunity for me to start buying more real estate. So over the next X amount of years, so since 2008 or so, I've been buying rental properties, short sales, foreclosures, duplexes, triplexes, whatever cash flow. It was pretty easy back then. You could basically throw a dart at the MLS and find a good deal. It's a little different today. But as those properties grew in value, I would take the equity out and buy more properties, keep accumulating more assets. And so as certain markets got a little too hot for me, I would search other areas. So right now I've been buying, I haven't bought in Minneapolis in about 5 years. I've been buying up in Duluth and Superior, Wisconsin. It's just easier to find good deals. So I've always had that rich dad, poor dad mindset in place. So every liability that I have an asset that pays for it. I didn't buy my car. I bought a sixplex up in Duluth whose cash flow paid for my car payment. My kids' college, I bought them each bunch of rental properties which will be paid off by the time they get to college. When they turn 16, I'm not buying them cars, I'm buying them each rental properties where they can manage the cash flow and pay for their car payment with the cash flow. That's kind of my mentality and the way that I've thought. And kind of my long-term goals, I currently have about 50 rental properties, 100 and some odd units, and I want to keep growing. So my goal is by the time my daughter gets to graduate from high school, everything's paid off and I have the platform that I need to do what I want to do. So that's a little bit of my background here. A little bit of the course. We're going to go over what passive income is, how we get started, what information you need to gather to make intelligent decisions, go over some financing, how to manage your property, improving your investment, how do you make it more valuable. We're going to go over a couple different examples together of hypothetical properties and run some numbers. Then we're going to go over what we do at the end, some exit strategies, and then we're going to wrap up. Any questions? And I can email this to you as well. I know at some classes they wanted me to email this presentation, and I can as well. So just shoot me an email and I can email you this. So first, what is passive income? By definition, passive income is earnings derived from a rental property, limited partnership, or other enterprise in which a person is not actively involved. You're not trading your time for money. Ideally, you're making money when you sleep. So there are varying degrees of passivity. So within real estate, you can buy real estate notes and basically do nothing, have the investment totally passive. Or you can flip homes. I don't really consider that as a passive activity, but there's varying degrees of activity within real estate. Even within long-term real estate, you can make the investment as active or as passive as you want. You can have a property manager take care of everything for you. They can pay the bills. They can rent the place out. They can fix everything. It's totally up to you. You're going to pay for it. On the other end of the spectrum, you can do everything yourself. You can lease the properties. You can do the work yourself. I'm somewhere in between. So I will, the properties that I own in town, I will actively manage. I will do the showings. I'll reach out to the contractors. I'll do anything but physical labor. I can't even change a light bulb. So I will hire anything that has to do with improving the property out. Now my properties that I have up in Duluth and Superior, Wisconsin, I have a management company that takes care of all of that. But I'm not passive about it. I actively manage the management company. So I meet with them probably once or twice a month. So I'll get a statement at the end of the month, and I'll go over everything with them. What can I do to increase my income? Why do I have vacancies? Why are my repair costs so high? What can I do to improve my investment? So I'm never totally passive on it. I actively manage my management company. See? And I just did a Google search. One of my goals was to have about 3 different sources of passive income. And so I did a Google search and I found these different types of passive income sources. I even looked at a couple, like buying ATMs, buying laundromats. But I always come down to real estate because that gives me my best opportunity to be financially free. So maybe one day I'll explore these options, but I always kind of come back to real estate for the way that I want to grow my net worth. So why is passive income important? Why is it important? Let me ask you guys, why would passive income be important in your lives?
Time for money.
Is that?
The time for money.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
You get time.
Absolutely. And so I wrote down a couple of ideas why passive income is important to me. You said freedom of time. The 2 most important people in my life, sorry to my wife, but are my 2 children. I have a son that's just over 4 and I have a daughter that's a year and a half. So what I want to do, I want to be an active father. I want to be available for them whenever they need me. So when they get into sports, when they get older, I want to go to their tennis matches. I want to go to their plays or music recitals. Whatever it is they get into, I want to be there for them. So that's a very important fact. You can do whatever you want. It can be charitable work. It can be golf. It can be tennis. Whatever it is, having a passive income source allows you more free time. Reduces stress and fear of the future. Everybody here is commissioned, right? Pretty much. Everybody knows that real estate ebbs and flows. It's hard to budget from year to year, let alone from month to month, from week to week, from day to day. It's very difficult. And so what having rental properties do, if you have an active or a passive income source, if you have a bad month, a bad year, bad 5-year period, you have a base to pay bills on. Able to do the things that you love rather than do things to pay the bills. So you don't have to work that job you don't want to work if you have enough money coming in. You can pick and choose what you want to do. Even within real estate, I'm sure everybody here doesn't love every client they work with. You always have to end up working with that $200,000 buyer that has $400,000 taste that wants to go everywhere from Farmington to Duluth to look at properties. If you have enough passive income, you don't have to deal with those people. If you don't want to, you have those people that don't treat you right, that don't respect your time. Maybe you don't have to work with them anymore. Ability to live and work anywhere you want. This winter sucked. I didn't want to be here. But if you have enough passive income, you can truly work wherever you want. Maybe you can spend the winter in Florida, work from there. But if you have enough passive income, you can work wherever you want. Platform for long-term financial security and retirement. I don't know about you, but I don't think I'm going to be getting any Social Security. So what I have to do is I have to plan for my own future. And so I think rental property is a great way to plan for retirement. Let's just put it this way. Let's just say you bought a rental property when you were 30 years old. Bought one rental property. That'd probably be paid off if you have a 30-year fixed by age 60. Now, That even one property can help. That's a few $1,000s a month to help you in retirement. That's a few $100,000 in equity that you have. Now imagine that times 2, 3, 4, 5 times. It's a great platform for retirement. So why real estate? Now there are 5 wealth generators of real estate. Anybody name them? Yep. Yep. So there's a great acronym that real estate investors use. It's real estate is ideal. IDEAL. So there's 5 wealth generators. Number 1 is income. Real estate provides cash flow. So ideally you're buying properties that have greater income, they have expenses, you have cash flow. And that cash flow can be used for whatever you want. It can be used to pay your bills. It can be used to accumulate to buy more properties, which is what I use it for. I don't have my rental property income as any part of my personal finances. It's all separate. It's all used to grow and pay off debt. But if you have a bad month or a bad year or whatever, I have that backdrop to live off of if I need to. Depreciation. The IRS is very kind to real estate investors. They allow you to depreciate the property. So let's just say that I bought a property for $200,000. The IRS allows me to depreciate the land value of that property. So let's just say it's the building parts of that property. Let's say you have $20,000 land value. You take $20,000 off of the 200, you have $180,000 that you can depreciate over 27.5 years. So it reduces your taxable income by that amount. What that does is that allows you to grow on a tax-deferred basis, which will exponentially grow your gains over time because you're not taxed on it. And let me caution you, I said tax-deferred, not tax-free. So when you sell your property, you're going to have to recapture that depreciation unless you do it, which we'll talk about at the end, is a 1031 exchange and kick that depreciation down the line. Equity. This is perhaps my favorite wealth generator. So over time, your tenant is basically paying off your mortgage. So when you have a mortgage, you have a principal and an interest component. So over time, ideally, your tenant has paid off your entire property. So it's always fun to look at. So I have, most people hate to make mortgage payments. I enjoy it. Because I have most of my properties on 10 and 15, or 15 and 20 year amortizations. So if I make a $1,000 mortgage payment, I always look at the principal. So I just made $500 that month, or whatever it is. So at the end of the year, when I look at my net worth statement, I'm always surprised to see how much principal I paid down over that time. Next is appreciation. There's 2 types of appreciation. Number 1 is going to be of market appreciation. Over time, real estate in general goes up in value. I don't know, anybody know what the average appreciation rate of real estate is? About 3% over a long enough time? So over time, if you hold it long enough, your property is going to appreciate. Now let me caution you, I never use appreciation in my analysis. I look at it as a bonus. Never buy a property that doesn't cash flow just because you're hoping it appreciates. Unless you have some insider knowledge on where Amazon's going to build their next facility, I wouldn't bank on properties just going up. Use that as a bonus. The second type of appreciation is forced appreciation. You can make the value of your asset more valuable. You can improve the income. You can decrease your expenses. You can add a bedroom. You can finish the basement. You have direct impact over the performance of your property. Not a lot of asset classes have that. Last is leverage. Real estate is very unique in that you're able to utilize leverage. You're able to put little down to obtain a significant asset. So you can buy a property literally for 0 down. Let me ask you this, if I wanted to buy $100,000 of Apple stock, how much money am I going to have to come up with? $100,000. So if I buy investment property and I have to put 20% down, so say it's $100,000, and I put 20% down, I have a 10% gain, which is $10,000. That's a 50% return on my money. This is $10,000, but I only put $20,000 into it. So I'm not a fan of using leveraging correctly. I don't advocate for over-leveraging, but leverage, if used methodically and correctly, can exponentially grow your net worth. Next, why real estate works. We just touched on this. Real estate is tangible and the owner can directly impact the performance of the property. You have direct control. You can make it more valuable by proper management, by doing things to the property that's going to increase value. Now, what if I wanted to increase the value of my Apple stock? What can I do? May I write a letter to the board? Nothing that I can do to make that more valuable. I have direct impact over my property, over my asset. People always need a place to live. So the real estate is Amazon-proof. Technology cannot take away the person's need for a physical place to live. As long as you're buying in locations that population growth is going upwards, your real estate is always going to have value. It's always going to go up over time. People will always need a place to live. Real estate is easy to understand. I think in general, people understand real estate. They live in homes. They understand homes. And we'll get to at the end, we'll go over some math examples, is the numbers aren't very difficult. You don't need a PhD to understand how to run numbers on real estate. It's fairly simple. Which we already spoke about, real estate is passive. You can spend as little or as much time as you want on real estate. It doesn't take a lot of your time. Real estate is stable for the most part. As we know, the stock market can go up 500 points in a day. It can go down 500 points a day. It's volatile. Real estate in general is slow and steady. Now, I don't think personally we're going to see another 2008 again, but it could go down. But it's going to go up over time. It's relatively stable. You're not going to see drastic increases or decreases in a given year. There's a variety of options within real estate. You can buy short-term rentals, long-term rentals. You can buy office buildings. You can buy retail. Whatever it is that you're passionate about, whatever it is your skill set is, there's probably a way to make money in real estate. You can find below-market deals. If you search hard enough, you can find information that's going to allow you to get a below-market deal. You can work hard enough to find good deals. In the stock market, what happens if you use information that's not public? You're going to end up like Martha Stewart and go to jail. So in real estate, insider trading is legal. You can find below-market deals if you search hard enough. And real estate has a proven track record. There's been more millionaires made in real estate than any other industry. Real estate has worked for hundreds of years prior to us, and it'll work for hundreds of years in the future because people always need a place to live. One thing I always advocate before people buy real estate is to get yourself in the right mindset. And I have a couple ideas here. Get your financial house in order. I'm not an advocate of people buying real estate to get out of financial difficulties. Make sure you get your finances in order. Get your credit score to where it needs to be. Pay your bills. Get your debt down. Make sure you're on a stable foundation. And if you need to buy, if you're buying a rental property and you need $20,000 for closing, don't have $21,000 in the bank. Make sure you have enough for reserves. So get yourself financially stable before you buy real estate. Educate yourself. Read books. Listen to podcasts. I read probably every single real estate book that comes out. So always learn. Nothing takes the place of actually owning a property, but always educate yourself. You want to be as knowledgeable as you possibly can. Network. Meet other real estate investors. Go to MINREA events. Go to meetups. Meet people. Learn from each other. You're going to find good deals just by knowing other real estate investors. So meet as many people and network with as many people as you can. Create your roadmap. So have a game plan. So if your goal is to have $10,000 in passive income a month in 10 years, how do I get there? Have a 10-year plan, a 5-year plan, a 1-year plan, a quarterly plan, a monthly plan, a weekly plan, a daily plan. Make sure that you have a roadmap. You're not going to just wake up one day and get $10,000 a month in passive income. It's not going to happen. Just like your real estate business. If I'm going to be a new real estate agent, I'm not just going to have a goal of doing $50 million a year. It's not going to happen. You got to have yourself, you have to have a roadmap, and you have to have goals on how you're going to get there. Accept that this is a marathon, not a sprint. Real estate is not a get-rich-quick business. Nobody got rich from their first rental property, but everybody got rich because of their first rental property. So accept that you're going to have short-term down, you're going to have tenants that leave, you're going to have water heaters that break. Things are going to happen, but accept that that's going to happen and look at the long term. Always keep the long-term goals in mind when investing in real estate. And lastly is take action. A lot of people never get started with real estate because they're scared to take that first step. It's difficult, I understand, but if you do all your education, you find a property that meets your cash flow needs, take action. So the first one's the most difficult, the second, third, fourth become a lot easier. So when you get started in real estate, you want to gather your team. So who are some people we should have on our team when we buy real estate?
Mortgage.
Mortgage? Yep. Anybody else? Contractor? Yep. So I put a list together to people that I think are important. Number one, I put your spouse. I was lucky enough to be able to have real estate before I got married. So I was able to talk to my wife about why I'm doing it. I could show her, on paper what I've been doing. But I still made my wife read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. I needed to make sure we're on the same page. You need to have the same goals, same short-term, same long-term goals as each other. And if they're not on board, get them on board. Educate yourself. Listen to podcasts together. Nothing's going to be worse than one person that wants to buy a property, the other one doesn't. A water heater goes out the property, and you hear, "See, I told you so." You just don't want that. You want to have an advocate. You don't want a detractor. Next is real estate agents. All of you guys. You guys are very important. You need to understand what the investor's long and short-term goals are. You need to be able to find properties that cash flow. You need to be able to know what makes a good rental property. What properties do I need to stay away from? What do I need to go for? They need to be trustworthy, honest, be able to take action. I'm not an advocate of part-time real estate agents because good deals are gone like this. You need to work with an agent that's on top of it. Lender, you need to work with a lender who understands the mindset of an investor. You need to be able to put them in good financing. So I always suggest maybe have a couple of different lenders, one for your, your conventional Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA type financing, and maybe your investors more creative. Maybe they want to buy an LLC, maybe they want to do construction financing, they need a bank loan, so you need to have another lender for that. So make sure you have a lender that fits whatever your investor's looking for. An attorney, I don't think beginning investors really need an attorney. I use an attorney for probably two things. One is to create an LLC documents, and the second you use for evictions. Attorneys are more useful for bigger deals. So if you buy larger apartment complexes, you'll need an attorney to draft a purchase agreement. But it never hurts to know an attorney to bounce ideas off of. An accountant. Everybody knows the tax law changes we've had over the last year. You need to work with an accountant that's up to speed on all the changes, that works with investors, that knows what deductions you're able to take. That's an advocate for your business. So don't work with an accountant that has no idea of how rental properties work.
Do you create LLCs for each investment property?
My wife made me.
Okay.
I didn't know, but she's an attorney. But there's no right or wrong of doing it. The reason you have an LLC for a property is in case they sue you, it's limited to that property. Now, I had blanket insurance policies on all mine, so I had umbrella coverage with $5 million of coverage. It's not that expensive. So do one of the two. I don't think there's really a right or wrong. If you ask 10 investors, you get 11 answers. I mean, there's no right or wrong on it. Handyman or contractor. This is probably the most difficult person to find in your team. It is extremely difficult to find a reliable handyman or contractor. From what I've found, I've gone through countless handymen, is if they're reasonably priced, they're usually flaky. And if they're, on the other end, if they're really reliable, they'll charge you $150 to change a light bulb. So it's very difficult to find a reliable, trustworthy handyman. Same goes with contractors. Contractors are busy right now. So it's hard to find one that's going to be an advocate for you, that's going to keep their costs down. You want to work with a contractor who understands the investor mindset, that's not going to over-improve your property, it's not going to put granite countertops in an area that doesn't need it. So very difficult to find good handyman and contractors. So if you have one, make sure to keep them on board and pay them well. Insurance agents, you want to work with an insurance agent that has multiple carriers. And from my experience, a lot of carriers come in and out of the market. Sometimes a new carrier will be in, and they'll save you a ton of money in your insurance. I really wish I was an insurance agent because nobody seems to shop them. It's just they keep renewing. You have to do your due diligence and shop your insurance agent. They should be able to tell you what deductible you have, if I need to have a blanket insurance coverage. Property manager, very important if you're buying in an area that you're not going to actively manage. property managers are very hard to come by, good ones are. And ideally, they're gonna treat the property as if it's your own. You know, it's never gonna get to that, but you wanna have an advocate, you wanna have so if I'm looking at a new area, I know what are my projected rents gonna be? Now, how are we gonna increase our rents? How are we gonna decrease expenses? They should be your business advocate, because the better I cash flow, the more properties they buy, the more properties that they have under contract. So, having a good property manager is very important. The last one I put on here is a mentor. It's good to have somebody in your life that you can bounce ideas off of, somebody that owns real estate, somebody that can tell you, is this a good deal, is this not a good deal, am I missing something? So having a mentor is important. The next one, I talk a little bit about what type of properties to buy. And I get this question a lot. You know, what makes a good investment property? Should I buy single family homes? Should I buy duplexes? Should I buy townhomes? What's a good investment strategy? There really isn't. There's pros and cons of each type of property. And it just depends on how much effort you want to put into it. So who here works with people who only buy single family homes? What do you like, what are your investors like about them?
We get tenants to stay a really long time.
That's probably the biggest one, yeah. Yeah.
There's really good appreciation with single-family homes.
Yep. Yeah. So, single-family home. The thing I like about single-family homes is when I have a vacancy and I fill it, I basically give them the keys and say, this is your house. They take care of it. They treat it as if it's their own. They take care of all the bills, they take care of the yard, they do everything for you. There's really, I don't even hear from the tenants. I literally have one property, I've had the tenant in there for 5 years. She's never kissed home in 5 years. She takes care of all the repairs. I don't even know if she's still there, but the checks keep coming in, so I'm assuming she's okay. But single-family homes are easy. It doesn't take a lot of work. So they're plentiful. You're always going to be able to find single-family homes in any area that you want to invest in. There's a strong exit strategy. So if you have to sell a property, there's going to be a large buyer pool to sell it to. Fewer bills, there really aren't any bills. The tenants take care of everything from your gas to your electric, your water, your sewer, your garbage. The only payment you really have is your PITI payment. They're easy to manage. I mean, they don't really do anything. They're not transient people. They live there. They dig in. They don't need a lot of support. They treat the home as themselves. You have more stable tenants. So I think my average single-family home is about 4 years of tenancy at least, which is great. It doesn't take a lot of my time. And Vandrew, you said there's better appreciation. You're going to have more appreciation because you have both investors and owner-occupants that want to buy them, which is going to push the prices up.
And the less turnaround that you have, the less expenses you have, because every time there's a turnaround, there's always something to do.
Yep, absolutely. Big.
So this just seems really kind of little, but you said like the yard, for example.
Yep,
They mow it. I mean, what if they don't have a lawnmower? Do you buy them? You just buy one for the house?
I'll figure it out.
I manage
Yeah, I
it,
buy
but-
it. Sometimes I'll buy it and I'll buy a shed or something to put it in.
Yeah.
But sometimes they don't do anything and they just figure it out.
And then it's in the lease that you have to mow every Tuesday or every other Tuesday or.
I don't state how much, I just state that they have to do it. And if I get a call from the city that says that they're not doing it, I charge them for it.
Okay, because that's where I was going with it. So we did that. We managed the property and they weren't. Neighbors called, city called. So we ended up hiring a service because they weren't doing it like they said they would.
Yeah.
Everything else was fine. They were just lazy with the yard. I mean, they
Yeah.
paid their bills. They did.
Well, I'll scan the city notice and email it to them, I say, take care of it. And if they find me and they have to do it, I put it on their tenant ledger.
Got it.
So, yeah. Lastly, it's less, single-family homes are less expensive to buy. Or you get a single-family home for less, you're gonna buy a duplex or a triplex. So the downside is it's a high cost per unit. It's gonna be difficult to scale. So if your goal is to have 100 units, single-family is probably not gonna be the way for you to go. That's gonna be 100 mortgages, it's gonna be 100 insurance policies. It'll take a long time to scale. The rehabs, you don't have a lot of them, but when they happen, rehabs are expensive just by the sheer square footage. And tenants seem to dig in more. They live there longer. There's a lot more deferred maintenance just because their tenancies are typically a lot longer. There's going to be more competition for single-family homes. You're competing not only against other investors, you're competing against owner-occupants who don't care about getting a 12% cash-on-cash return. They're buying because they want to live there. And then lastly, vacancies hurt a lot more. If the house is vacant, it's 100% vacant. Townhomes and condos. Anybody here work with investors that buy townhomes and condos? They're just easy. So townhomes are even easier than single-family homes. So I have 2 townhomes that I've owned for a while, and literally one of the townhomes I bought in 2010, I've had the same tenant for the entire time. I've probably gotten 3 phone calls, and now she wants to buy it from me, so I'm selling it to her at the end of the month. So tenants love townhomes. They dig in, again, like single-family homes. They're just a lot easier because the association takes care of a lot of the issues. They take care of the yard. They take care of the snow removal. So they take care of pretty much everything. There's not a lot of maintenance. And they're even easier to manage than single-family homes. Downside is, anytime we have an association, they can be a pain. They can regulate how much rentals are in a particular complex. So unfortunately, I'm in the process of potentially suing my association because I had the townhome that I have, there's a sprinkler suppression system in it, and it burst, and it leaked into 4 different units. And so, but literally my tenant, the association hasn't even done anything about it for 2.5 months. She's had no flooring. And the association decides, they have a $25,000 deductible, they want to charge each unit that's affected the $25,000 deductible. So I own 2 of the 4 units, so they're charging me $12,500 for the damage, which is probably not, I'm going to be fighting it. So anytime you have an association, you're not in control. Homeowners association fees can cut into your expenses. So you want to buy in properties that have low association dues. But the other thing is, the association dues can go up at any time. They don't really give you notice. So they can drastically cut into your cash flow. Special assessments. I've seen a lot of times downtown, they'll just redo all the windows and then charge the owners. So anytime you deal with an association, they can charge a special assessment anytime. New roofs, they can charge you for it. Very.
You should have an HO6 policy that takes care of the deductible.
Yes,
association.
absolutely. Yeah, but in my case, I have $5,000 deductibles. So it didn't work out that well, but absolutely you're right.
Wait, say that, so what is, how can HO6 cover an assessment?
Not an assessment, no. I would say my flood damage.
Oh, the flood damage, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, because you always should have an HO6 policy.
Yeah,
No, they're typically more volatile than single-family homes. You're going to see them not go up as much in value, and you saw during the downturn that condos got crushed. So they are more volatile than single-family homes. And lastly, they have a little bit more difficult exit strategy, which I've seen in a lot of condos downtown, is if the association is suing the builder for faulty windows, foundation, or what have you. I've tried to do financing on a couple properties downtown, but you can't because the property is in the middle of litigation. So just be careful of that. Next, we're going to talk about multifamily. So with multifamily, certain investors will only buy multifamily. One of the reasons is there's more cash flow possibilities. You can increase rents in some units, not other units. You can charge garage rent. You can charge laundry income. There's a lot more ways to make money on multifamily properties. Much easier to scale. One loan can cover 100 units if you want. You have one insurance policy that covers, 100 units. So it's a lot easier to scale. People buying multifamily look at math over emotion. They don't care how cute the house is. They're not going to look at it emotionally. More investors in multifamily look at it as just simply looking at the numbers. There's going to be a lot less competition from homeowners, so more competition is just going to be other investors. And the last price per unit is going to be a lot lower. I mean, you can find price per units down to $30,000 if you really want, but you're going to be able to find them a lot less expensive than single-family homes. Some of the cons is they're going to be more expensive. They're going to be much more management intensive. Anytime you have neighbors, there's potential problems. So you do a lot more babysitting with your multifamily. I get a lot of calls. Well, the upstairs unit's being too loud. They're walking too loud. Their dog is barking. They're not picking up their dog food. There's, anytime you have neighbors, you can have issues. So there's a lot more management intensive. You have more savvy competition. There's going to be a lot higher turnover. So my average multifamily is probably about a year and a half to 2 years of longevity. So you're gonna have more terms, you're gonna have more cost to turn the units. It's gonna be more management intensive because you have to do more showings. And lastly, there's 3 to choose from. I know I looked at the MLS the other day, there's just not a lot of good multifamily available right now. And I'm not gonna talk too much about commercial. So commercial financing or commercial homes are anything 5 units and above. And so you probably don't deal with a lot of that, but obviously, a lot of investors will only look at, larger than 4 units. So look at commercial, they'll look at retail. But I'm not gonna cover too much of that because you don't probably deal with that in your job. So next is, where do I buy my property? Real estate is location, location, location. So there's no right or wrong place to buy, it's what's right for you. So investors will classify properties typically between 4 categories. You have your A, B, C, and D categories. And I was reading a blog post the other day, and one guy was saying, an A property is someplace I want my family to live. A B property is where my family could live. A C family is a property that if I could live if I absolutely had to. And a D property is I'd rather go camping. That was his take on it. I thought it interesting. But your A properties are going to be in your prime neighborhoods, your great schools. It's going to be your newer construction. It's going to be your granite, your stainless steel. So these properties are going to command a lot higher value, and you're going to get a lot lower rate of returns. Your B properties are going to be probably between 15 and 30 years old. Going to have more deferred maintenance, going to be maybe just outside of the prime areas, where you're going to get a higher return on your B-type properties. Your C properties are mostly going to be 30 years and older. It's going to be a lot more maintenance, a lot more repairs. You're probably going to deal with a lot of Section 8 in these type of properties. And then your D properties are going to be your war zones, your Chicago with all the shootings. It's going to be the boarded up windows, the properties most people want to stay away from. And there's no right or wrong. I mean, there's money to be made on every single type of property. It just depends on what your appetite is. Some people don't want any maintenance. They don't want any hassle. They're going to look at your A properties. Some people enjoy the making it more valuable, enjoy the higher rate of return. So maybe they're looking at more C properties. There's no right or wrong. It's what's right for you and your goals. So when looking at where to buy rental properties, a couple things I think everybody should look at. One is you want to look for crime and drugs. People do not want to live in high crime areas, and if they do, they're probably not going to be the tenants that you want. So there's a couple of resources that I look at. CrimeReports.com, it's free. And there's neighborhoodscout.com is a great website, but it's not free. I think it's $29 a report. But what Neighborhood Scout will do is it'll give you a comprehensive analysis on the entire area. It'll give you walkability scores, it'll give you rating of the schools, it'll give you a synopsis of the local economy. And Trulia has what are called heat maps. And so you just type in an address, and then if it's a big red, it means a lot of crime. If it's green, it means it's safe. So always check on the crime in the area where you're buying. Schools, I think everybody here knows the importance of schools. Tenants, just like your buyers, want to live in areas that have good schools. The better the schools, the better rent that you're going to be able to command. Unemployment rates. Now, this is probably not as applicable now because we're fortunately in a very good economy. But you want to look, when the economy shifts, and it will, you want to look at areas that do not have high unemployment rates. If you have high unemployment, it means more vacancies, more rent concessions. So you want to buy in areas that have strong employment. Diversity of employment. This is very important. You don't want to buy in an area that has one employer. So if you buy in an area that has an army base and that's the only source of income for the area, what happens if that army base goes out? You're kind of stuck. Everybody knows what happened in the Rust Belt states where the whole economy is based on manufacturing. Once the manufacturing economy went down, the whole area was in trouble. So you want to buy in areas that have diverse employment, a little bit of combination between private sector employment. So if one area is not doing well, another area will hold it back up. Population growth. I always try to look to buy in areas that have positive population growth. Simple supply and demand. The more population, the higher the rents, typically the better tenants you can choose from. So buy in areas that have positive population growth. Transportation People like to live next to transportation. Look what happened along the light rail line, all the development that took place there. People want to be able to hop on the bus stop, hop on the light rail. So buying next to transportation is beneficial. Proximity to local business. People like to rent where they work. I was reading a blog post for some guy whose strategy is always to buy next to where a Starbucks is opening. His rationale behind that was they've done millions and millions and millions of dollars of research on where to put their coffee shop. He goes, why not just tag off of their research and buy where they're building? Not a bad idea. Price to rent ratios. So I try to look for areas. So if the median home price in an area is $250,000 and I'm only getting $1,500 a month in rent, probably not an area where I want to buy rental properties in. So I try to find areas that has, we'll get to in a little bit, the 1% rule. So if a property is $150,000, I want the gross monthly rent to be 1% of that. So $1,500 a month is what I try to look for in certain areas to decide where to buy. Vacancy rates. Again, not very important right now just because we're in a good economy. Most areas have pretty low vacancy rates. But again, this is going to change. When the economy shifts, and it will, at some point, you want to look for areas that have high vacancy rates, or low vacancy rates. And lastly, population size. I don't buy in small areas. A couple of reasons for that. I want to be able to have a wide tenant pool to choose from. So if you're buying in an area that only has 20,000 people, what happens if there's only one electrician in town, one handyman in town, one property management company in town, and that person doesn't work? You're kind of stuck. So I like to buy in areas that have, I use 100,000 metropolitan area. I think that gives me enough of a tenant base and enough ancillary services, contractors, and everything to choose from. That's it, yeah.
Do you ever look at cities and their regulatory issues or how they treat the investor?
I don't, but I know some investors won't invest in certain cities like Chicago because it's very, very tenant friendly, and it takes about a year to get somebody out. Minneapolis is getting there. They're trying to have a tenant bill of rights, and they're not going to allow you to increase rents. I mean, this is a proposal, but if something like that comes along, I most certainly will.
And I noticed too in St. Louis Park, they are now saying that you can't have your tenants sign that crime control, crime and drug policy. I got a notice about that they find that it's too discriminatory.
That must be new, because I have a
It's
property in
brand
St.
new.
Louis Park, and they made me sign it for my tenant when.
Right, I
Okay.
think I got that a notice about 6 weeks ago.
Okay, well, good to know. Remove that from my list then.
Those are cap rates.
Cap rates? Okay. So we'll go over a couple that I find that most investors will at least take a look at here. And so we'll go over this next example, but I want to qualify this by saying that the numbers that we use for our analysis are only meaningful if they've been validated. So like I said, sellers can be liars, and nothing, I hate it when sellers give you a pro forma. They say, well, the rents are $1,200, but they should be $1,500. Well, you're telling me the seller's stupid then, because why would they not be charging the higher amount? So I never go off of performance. I only go off of the numbers that I have myself validated. I've had people send me, last year, somebody sent me an 11 unit. They said, well, it's got this 12% cap rate. Okay, I'll take a look at it. It was a 1930 building, I think, and they used $3,000 a year for repairs. No wonder it's a 12% cap rate. So it was 10 times that amount. And they also used a 4% management fee. Well, who's going to manage your property for 4%? It's not a manager that I probably want to use. So why I'm saying this is you always want to make sure that you're using the correct numbers. Because if your cash-on-cash return is 12 that you want, it's only meaningful if you use the appropriate numbers. Make sense? So in this property here, we'll go over a couple of one examples. So the client's looking at everybody have the sheet? Okay. So a $200,000 property, they're going to be putting 20% down, 30-year fixed at 5%. So their monthly payment's $859 a month. Closing costs on the transaction are $5,000. Taxes are $200 per month. Insurance is 100, vacancy rate is 5%, utilities $200 per month, repairs are $200 per month, CapEx $150, management fee $150, and then your income is $2,400 per month. So the first formula that you want to go over is net operating income. Net operating income is very simple to calculate. It's going to be your gross rents minus your vacancy rates. So in this situation, we have $2,280, which is $2,400 times 95%, subtracting off all the expenses but not the mortgage. Does not include the mortgage. So in this situation, we have $1,280 per month, or $15,360 per year is your net operating income. That make sense? Okay. The next formula is the cap rate. And this is probably the most talked about formula, cap rate. Everybody talks about and brags about what cap rates they're getting. I don't really use cap rates. I use cap rate as kind of a barometer for certain areas. So like LA will have a cap rate, New York will have a cap rate, Cleveland will have a cap rate. So I kind of use it for a general idea of what properties are typically cash flowing. So I don't look at it really any more than that. I don't think there's really a good cap rate or a bad cap rate. You can improve your cap rates, but how it's calculated is you take your net operating income. Remember, we calculated $15,360 and divide it by the purchase price, $200,000. So what it means is, what is your rate of return if I bought this property in all cash? That make sense? Okay. So now we have our cash flow. Cash flow is your monthly income minus your total expenses. So here we're going to include your mortgage payment. So we have $2,280 minus $1,859, or $421 per month, or $5,052 per year. Make sense?
Yes.
So cash on cash return. Now this is the formula that I always use for when I analyze rental property. I think it's the best for me. And let me qualify this. There's no right or wrong. I mean, 12% doesn't mean it's good or bad. It's whatever works for you and your investment strategy. So what I look for is a 12% cash on cash return using a 20-year AM. That's just how I look at properties. So now how we look at a cash on cash return, we take your yearly cash flow, which is $5,052 per year, and divide it by your total cash outlay. So we have we had a $40,000 down payment. We had $5,000 of closing costs. And if there were any repairs that you had to make or anything when you acquired it, you would add this to that number. So in this scenario, you have $5,052 divided by $45,000, so the down payment plus the closing costs gives you 11% cash on cash return. Make sense? Okay, really about as easy as that. Debt coverage ratio, we mentioned it a little bit earlier. This is not something that you really need to know, but it's something if you do bank financing you want to be aware of to determine whether or not you're going to get a loan on a property. So debt coverage ratio is simply the net operating income, so $15,360, divided by your total debt service. So your $859 times 12, so $10,308 comes to a 1.49% debt coverage ratio. And so this is what the bank is going to determine whether they lend you the money or not. Typically, you have to be above 1.2%. Make sense? And the next couple here, I'm just using rules of thumb. So I spoke about earlier, is a lot of investors will have a 1% rule or a 2% rule. What that simply means is 1% of the purchase price you want in gross monthly income. So I use this just to weed out properties. So if I get a lot of properties I'm looking at, if it's not close to 1%, I just toss it aside and move on. Now, it doesn't mean it's a good property. You still have to do your due diligence. It's just a way for me to quickly analyze a property. So if a property is $250,000 and I'm only getting $2,000 a month, it's easy for me just to kick it up and not do any more research on it. So it's just a quick rule of thumb. And I really don't see any more getting 2% rules in this market. So if a property is $2,000, you get $4,000 a month in rent. probably gonna need a lot of maintenance, but we don't really see too much of that. Some investors look for it, but good luck. 50% rule, another rule that investors use, they basically say that they take your gross rents, if it's $2,000, let's just say, expenses, not including your mortgage, are generally about half of that, or 50%. So your expenses are about $1,000. It's just a way to do quick math that a lot of investors do to weed out some properties. Make sense? Okay. So next I want to go over here is a group activity. So I want you either to do it yourselves or break out small groups, whatever. We're going to have another property we're going to go over together here, and I want you to calculate a couple things for me. So we have your client found a triplex and wants you to run some numbers for him. We have a purchase price of $250,000. We're putting 25% down. Closing costs are $5,000. The terms are 5.75% 30-year fixed for $1,094 per month. Taxes are $250 per month. Insurance $125. Utilities $175. Repairs are $300. CapEx $150. Management fees $200. Rent is $2,800 per month. Your vacancy rate is 5%, and you have additional laundry income of $100 per month. So I want you to calculate a couple things for me. What's the net operating income? What's the cap rate? What's the monthly cash flow? And what's your cash on cash return? So I'll maybe give you 5-10 minutes and we'll reconvene. Just let me know. I know math's not everybody's favorite subject, but yeah, any questions on this, just let me know or contact me on my So now that we have our property, what are some of the things that we can do to make our asset more valuable? So, there's really hundreds of things that you can do. So I wrote down a couple that have worked for me. Number one, we already spoke about, professionally clean your units. You want to make sure your property is in rent-ready condition, clean, by the time that somebody looks at it. You're going to maximize your rents and you're going to get better tenants by having clean units. Next thing I do, I change all carpet to vinyl hardwood. I do not have any carpet on my rental properties. I hate carpet. It smells, it gets dirty. So there's this vinyl hardwood you can get at Home Depot or Menards. It's very modern looking. I use like kind of a light gray blue, and I put that on my rentals. It's very clean looking, it's modern looking. Tenants will pay a premium for it, and it lasts forever. Carpets will last maybe 5 years at the most. This will last double the time. So you're going to have less headaches, and it's going to look better, and you're going to get more premium rents.
LVT,
Yep, that what it is?
luxury vinyl tile.
Yes. Yeah, I use that in all my rentals now. It's been great. Tenants, actually, a tenant said that they would pay an extra $60 a month if I put that in. I'm like, oh, that's done.
So you just put it in automatically when you buy a place, or do you wait until?
I wait until the tenants are moved out, and then I'll.
What do you mean until you use it, or just right away, no matter what, you just put it in?
Well, if the tenants are already in there, I won't do it, but I'll, as soon as they're gone, it's just a hassle for them.
Yeah.
So, update your bathrooms. It's very cheap to update bathrooms. And tenants like to have clean, updated bathrooms. You can do a bathroom for under $2,000. The square footage is very small. You can get new flooring in there. You can get a new toilet, it's what, $150? You can get rid of that pedestal sink. You can get those vanities at Home Depot or Menards for $200. It makes it look clean. You can get those insert surrounds on your bathtubs. Those are very cheap. You can get bathrooms done for less than $2,000. Coin laundry. I've been implementing this on my multifamilies. It's a great way to get a little bit extra income. I figure my recapture period, they cost, I think, maybe $1,200. I recapture it in less than 2 years to capture my cost. So I try to put in coin laundry in my multifamilies. Storage, we spoke about a little bit earlier. So if you have an empty basement and it's a multifamily, throw some lockers in there. Make an extra $15, $20 a month. It all adds up. Pet rent, we spoke about. If they have a pet, charge the rent. It's an easy extra $35 or so a month, and it is going, the tenants are not going to balk at it. Adding a bedroom. This is I found this to be very worthwhile. So I have a triplex in Duluth, and the top unit is, it's got a one bedroom, but it's got an empty attic on the top. My current rent on it's, I think, $650 per month for that bedroom. I'm still getting bids right now. It's going to be between $20,000 and $24,000 for me to add 2 bedrooms. But my rent is going to go from $650 to $1,300 a month by adding the 2 extra bedrooms. I'm going to recapture that in less than 5 years, especially if you're buying in college areas. This is big because college kids rent by the bedroom. If you have an empty basement, you can add an egress for $500, finish a basement for that portion of the basement for less than $5,000, and depending on the college area, you can get between $350 and $500 extra per bedroom. So it's a great way to add value. Any place you can add a bedroom, I would suggest doing it. Always increase rents on renewal. So anytime I have a lease that's up, I automatically increase the rent. I call it a nuisance rent increase. Maybe it's $15 a month, maybe it's $25 a month, but I always do something. It's not going to be enough to make them move. $25 a month is not going to make them move out of your house. But multiply that $25 a month times 10, 20, 30 units, it all adds up. So anytime I have a lease that's up, I add a little bit. Not enough to make them leave, but just enough to add to my bottom line. Storage sheds. I haven't used this one before, but I read about people that have bought storage sheds and they have a big backyard and they rent out the storage shed for $50 a month. If you have a big yard, it's something to look into. Parking, we discussed before. Always try to rent out your garages separately if you can. It's going to be an extra $50 to $100 a month. We spoke about the CenterPoint Service Plus program. It's written into every one of my leases. I make the tenants sign up for it. It's $39 a month. And what that does, if there's any issues with the furnace, if there's any issues with the appliances, it saves me time because they don't contact me. And secondly, it saves me a trip charge. I don't have to pay somebody to go out there and look at the furnace. CenterPoint will automatically go do it. And if they don't have the CenterPoint plan and they sign their lease, they say, well, contact me in a week, sign up for it. You have to deal with it for a week, and then it'll be free for them to have CenterPoint come out and look at it.
It's a month, not a week.
Rob, we spoke about the ratio utility billing systems. So I'm a strong supporter of always putting the utilities in the tenant's name. So if it's a single meter, you want to make sure to implement this system. It's a way to get the utilities into the tenant's name. Have the tenants take care of the yard. We spoke about that as well. I never will have a property where I'm responsible for the snow and the lawn care. It is extraordinarily expensive. At some of my properties in Duluth, I had a $400 snow plowing bill. It's insane. You're not going to find lawn care for less than $120 a month. So you can charge a tenant $50 a month for it. It's going to save you a lot of money. Shop your insurance. Most people are complacent with their insurance. I shopped my insurance 2 years ago. I saved $20,000 a year by shopping my insurance around, because different carriers are going to come in at different times. And a lot of insurance agents are lazy. They just expect everybody to renew you. I think the insurance renewal rates are like 90-something%. People don't shop insurance. Always do so. Keep your insurance agent honest. Screen tenants. It's more expensive to have a bad tenant than it is to have a vacancy. If you're not finding good tenants, wait. Don't just acquiesce. Don't just put that person in your property. Screen them and wait for the right tenant. It's a lot more expensive to evict somebody than it is to have a month vacancy. Regular maintenance, keep your properties up. Now, I'm not always good about it, but try to do a maintenance walkthrough once or twice a year to make sure that tenants are treating your property correctly. And always scrutinize your expenses. Consistently look for ways to improve your asset. Look for ways to decrease costs. If you can implement RUBS, if you can find cheaper handymen, always find a way to keep your expenses as low as possible. So I'll go over next a couple of the pitfalls that I see with real estate investors. Small, sorry. Number one is not verifying your numbers. I've spoke about this before. It's imperative that you verify every number that you have. If you don't verify your numbers, you're not going to get your rates of returns you're looking for. Always verify. Not including CapEx. Most investors don't account for big ticket items. They don't account for the roofs. They don't account for the appliances, the water heaters. It's gonna happen. It's just a matter of time. Make sure you account for it. Only looking at yield. Just because something has a sexy yield does not mean it's a good investment. Just because it maybe meet your 1 or 2% rule, you need to do more due diligence. It might be in a bad area. It might have a ton of deferred maintenance. So don't just look at the yield, look at the numbers. Buying in a bad location. You don't want to be buying in areas with decreasing population. You don't want to be buying in areas where you have heavy turnover, you have bad tenants. Always look and scrutinize the area that you're buying. Again, you could have a great yield, but it could be in a terrible area where you have a lot of turnover and bad tenants. Letting tenants get too far behind. I'm very guilty about this. I mean, we're all humans, we all have hearts, we don't want it. The last thing in this world we want to do is evict somebody. It's not fun. I don't want to put a family on the street. But the bottom line is if a tenant gets a month behind, 2 months behind, 3 months behind, you know, they're only making $3,000 a month, and now they're $3,000 behind, they're not going to make it up. So have a certain time period that you're going to kick somebody up. It's 15 days, whatever it is, and stick to it. Do not let them get too far behind. Trying to get rich quick. I think this is a get-rich-slow business. Nothing infuriates me more than listening to these quote-unquote real estate gurus that say you should quit your job, you're going to make $5,000 to $10,000 of passive income in the next 6 months by just doing this. It's not going to happen. This is a slow and steady game. If you buy slow, you buy intelligently, you're going to make money in real estate. Don't try to take shortcuts. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. Underestimating repairs. Always do your due diligence up front. If the property has a lot of deferred maintenance, make sure you budget for it. Don't underestimate repairs. If it's an older building, make sure you put in your line items a larger number. Analysis paralysis. A lot of people don't get started in real estate because they're scared to take that first move. I understand that. Now, you know, if you've done your research, you've done your due diligence, you found a property that works, that meets your investment guidelines, take action. So don't just sit on the sidelines. The first one is very difficult. The next 2, 3, 4 are very easy. Buying with your head and not your heart. So some investors will buy a property because they think it's really cute. It's got a cute kitchen, it's got a cute ambiance, or whatever it is. But if the numbers don't make sense, they don't make sense. Just because you like a property, don't buy it. If it looks pretty and you can see yourself living there and the numbers don't work, it still doesn't make sense. So use your head and always go off of the numbers, not your emotions. Not having reserves. This is probably the biggest fault of a lot of investors. You know, this winter was terrible. I mean, I had floods, I had frozen pipes, I had, you name it, I probably had it. But I had reserves for it. You don't want to be buying a property, cleaning out your bank account, and then you have a water heater or some other issues that happen. You need to make sure you have a contingency plan if things happen, because they will eventually.
Typically, banks require, especially with a large enough investment like this, for you to have reserves, right?
You know, they don't even check on my commercial loans. They don't check.
But on conventional?
Conventional, you know, it's relatively low. If you have over 4 financed properties, they want you to have 6 months reserves per property. But under 4, they don't. They maybe 2 months reserves, but maybe not, might not even be enough.
Okay.
Choosing bad contractors or handymen. I've done this a few times. So if a handyman's not working out, if a contractor's not working out, cut them loose immediately. Don't let them take advantage of you. Don't let them, you know, take advantage of your time and your money. Not doing your upfront due diligence. Use your inspection periods. Make sure you have an inspection done on all your properties. You don't want to have surprises. Verify your numbers. Make sure that you've accounted for all your expenses. You've done it, the foundation is good. You're not going to have any big surprises. I mean, you're not going to find everything up front. I mean, I bought properties where I didn't scope the sewer. And then 2 months later, I had a sewer backup, and I found that there was roots growing in the sewer line. And I had to pay $5,000 to cut the roots out and reline the entire sewer. You know, you can do as much due diligence as you can. You're not going to account for everything, but do as much as you possibly can up front so those things don't happen. and not learning from your mistakes. I make mistakes every day. My wife tells me about it. But learn from them, grow from them. Your mistakes aren't bad. They're tools to help you grow. Learn from them. Don't be. Yeah.
Do you scope sewer lines on every property?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
No. I know some people do, and I've had one property in all of mine that have had that issue up front. It's expensive.
It is.
I don't even know how much scoping is.
Mini Gasco's Service Plus has that as one of their options.
Oh, they do? Look into that.
And I do that on
Okay.
all,
How much is it? Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, it's really not that expensive.
not bad to scope.
I use suits, yeah.
Repair.
Just a $5,000 repair if there is an
Yep.
issue.
Yeah.
So, good to know. Next, we'll go over just some real estate myths that I often see. You know, you have to have a large down payment. You do not have to have a large down payment to buy real estate. You can buy for as little as 5% down on a conventional, 3.5% down FHA, 0 down on a VA. You do not have to have a large down payment. A lot of people do not get started in real estate because they think they have to have 20% down. You absolutely do not. It's just like the show you saw on HGTV. I can't watch HGTV. I've had a lot of clients come to me and they say, oh, I saw this great show on HGTV. It seems so easy. I'm going to quit my day job and I'm going to flip homes. How do I finance that? Are you kidding me? But a lot of people think it's that easy. It's not. You're not going to get a kitchen done for $5 grand. You're not going to get the flooring done in your house for $1 grand. The numbers that I see on HGTV, I'm like, I don't know where what planet they're coming from. But it's not easy. It's slow. It's methodical. It's not easy. The market will always go up. I never base my returns on anticipated appreciation. A lot of people got in a lot of trouble in 2006 and 2007 because they didn't buy on cash flow. They bought on hoping that the values kept going up. They do these negative amortizing loans like, well, I don't care if the numbers go up. My property's always going to go up at 15% per year. It's not. So buy on the numbers. As long as the numbers make sense, I think in the long term you should be okay. Because over time real estate will go up, but there's no guarantee. You have to fix toilets at 2 a.m. A lot of people don't start in real estate because they don't want to have phone calls. I can tell you in 15 years, I've never answered my phone after 10 o'clock from a tenant, ever. So as long as you have people that can handle these issues for you, you're not going to have any issues.
What do you mean by people that, you mean?
Handymen, I give them a list of people they need to call. I've never had something that was so much of an emergency that I need to wake up and take care of it, ever.
But you buy your first single family rental, for example. You have a guy kind of on call for just.
Yeah, I mean, they'll call me or I'll forward it on, but I've never had something that's been so urgent that at 2 in the morning I need to fix it. Usually if I have a running toilet, well, big deal. There's very, very few emergencies unless it's maybe a frozen pipe that bursts. That's a different story, but I've never had that in the middle of the night.
Because I think at least for me, in talking to clients who call me and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this or flipping a house or whatever, or having rentals, that's the one I hear the most. But getting the calls at 3 in the morning for something.
Done it 15 years, I've never taken a call.
Okay.
So. You have to be wealthy. You do not have to be wealthy to buy real estate.
Buying the property.
People have made money, people who have had, average incomes, $30,000, $40,000 a year, have been made millionaires by real estate. You don't have to be rich. As long as you have a game plan and a roadmap, buy your first rental property, move into it, lease it out, buy another one. As long as you have a game plan, it doesn't matter how much you make on your day job. You can become a millionaire in real estate just by having a plan in place. Raising rents will force tenants out. You hear from a lot of people, they're scared to increase their rents because they don't want to deal with the vacancy. I get it, but the fact of the matter is it's not very difficult to get new tenants. It doesn't take much time. And raising rents does not automatically force tenants out. You do not want to leave money on the table. If you're $200 under market rent, it's better to kick them out than to keep renting it at below market values. So always raise rents when you can. You have to buy where you live. So most people think you have to buy in the immediate area. You don't. If the local real estate market is too hot, don't buy there. The great thing about technology right now is that as long as you have a good team in place, you can buy wherever you want. You can buy in California, Florida, Chicago. I'm buying up in Duluth and Superior. Your real estate agent can FaceTime you the entire property. As long as you have a good agent that you trust, as long as you have a good property manager that you can trust, handyman that you can coordinate, you can buy wherever you want. It doesn't matter. There's actually, I read a good book on that too, if you're interested, Long Distance Real Estate Investing. So that's a great book on buying outside of your comfort zone.
That David Green?
Yeah, it is, yeah. You read the book, I'm sure?
Yeah.
Good book. And real estate takes a ton of time. It doesn't. I can probably tell you I spend about 4 hours, if that, a week on my real estate. So it does not take a lot of time. So last part of the class, I just want to touch on a couple different exit strategies that investors will use. Is everybody here familiar with the 1031 exchange? Okay. A lot of investors will use that, we spoke about earlier, as a way to kind of push your depreciation, your capital gains down the road. So on a 1031 exchange, you sell your property and you put the funds from the sale in an intermediary. And within that time, you have to identify within 45 days up to 3 properties that you want to acquire. And then within 180 days, you have to close on one of those 3 properties. Does that make sense? So it's a great way to defer your capital gains and your depreciation in perpetuity. And then once you pass away, and maybe give everything to your children, the cost basis goes up, so you don't pay that depreciation anymore. So a 1031 exchange is a great way to keep diverting your taxes down the line. Holding forever. This is more my strategy. I plan on holding my properties forever and being able to have something to give to my children. So I do prune off a couple properties. If a property doesn't make sense for me, if it gives me too much hassle, if it doesn't give me the rate of returns that I want, I'll get rid of it. I'm selling both my townhomes to my tenants just because I have too much equity in them. My return on the equity doesn't meet my standards. I'd rather take that equity and put it in something that's going to give me a higher rate of return. So under those situations, I will sell off a couple of my properties here and there, but my long-term intent is to hold forever. Yeah.
Relevant to 1031 exchange, that criteria changed at all as far as like and kind in what you can roll into?
Not that I'm aware of. You mean through the new tax laws?
Yeah. Or even over the last 10 years, it's still the same?
I don't believe so. It's got to be of same or greater value though too. So if you sell a property that's $200,000, you got to find another property of that kind or greater. You can't buy 3 properties at $75,000.
But you could still roll a fourplex into a vacation rental property.
Oh, yeah.
Rental is
Yeah.
rental. And
Yep, as long as the value's higher.
Or farm and land.
Yeah, you certainly do that.
there you go.
Seller financing. A lot of times investors get to the point where they have everything that's paid off and they just don't want the headaches of being a landlord anymore. So what they'll do is they'll sell all their properties with seller financing, have somebody else take care of everything, deal with the tenants, and they simply just get a rate of return on their property. They're tired, they want easy income, they sell it off, and then they collect and not have to deal with all the day-to-day maintenance of properties. And the last one, cash out. So you get to the point where you're done, you don't want to do it anymore, cash out, take everything, put it in maybe an annuity and call it a day. Any questions?
I had a question about financing.
Yeah.
Is there a way to take your college-age kid and put him in something and get financing
Yes.
and support them?
Yes.
Get that going? Yeah.
So what you do is, you can do an FHA mortgage,
Yep.
and you would be what's called a non-occupying co-borrower. So you will co-sign with the college students.
Okay.
Yep, I do see that a lot. It's a great idea.
This is an active business as far as IRS is concerned, active versus passive.
For you, not me. As a real estate agent, it's considered active income. For me, I'm kind of borderline. They look at, so I'm not, even though I'm in mortgage banking, I'm not considered active. You as real estate agents are considered active. So for me, I talked to my accountant about that, and it's relatively gray. I have to spend more than 40 hours a week on my rental properties for them to consider me an active real estate investor. So that's kind of a gray area, but if you're a real estate agent, you are an active investor.
What are the specific tax benefits for realtors to own rental properties? Do you know?
We need to buy it.
Well,
Good cases.
as a realtor, we have some advantages if we own rental properties.
So kind of what he was referring to is you're an active investor. So what that means is you can take, let's just say you have a loss on your rental property. You can take that loss against your personal income. So me as not an active investor, I'm not able to take the loss on my rental property and reduce my income that I have on my day job. I can't do that. So that's the big difference.
Tyler, even if you held that, rather than with LLC as an individual, you held those, wouldn't you be able to still write that off then?
As a,
I mean, if you hadn't bought all those as LLC units, then, and still held them as an individual, then couldn't you write that loss off against your?
no, because it still flows through to my personal returns. So it doesn't matter. I'm not able to deduct it.
Mm.
Yeah. An LLC is basically just a safety net. It doesn't change the way my taxes are done. For me, it still reports on my personal income.
Right.
It just gives me security in case I get sued.
Okay.
Any questions?
You can email this.
Yeah, I can email that to you. I know it's small print. At Mara, it's a lot bigger, so yeah, just shoot me an email. I can email you. That's not a problem.
Do you own your house and you jump to a different property and get an FHA mortgage, even though you own a different property?
As long as you occupy it. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
See you back at the